Hello everyone, and welcome to the Gunners Guild. Today I'm going to discuss the changes to bows in Monster Hunter World, and then give a little review of my own personal thoughts about them. I'm going to go ahead and assume that you already know how bows work in previous games, so we're just going to jump right into the changes. So we're going to start with probably the biggest change to bows, which is that they no longer have a shot pattern. So you no longer have rapid, spread, or pierce shots on your various charge levels. Instead, all bows shoot the exact same types of arrows. You now fire your rapid shots on your charges 1 through 3 by holding down your fire button. Spread is now your quick shot and power shot, arc shot with circle, and dragon pierce with triangle and circle. This is a pretty big change for bows because it seems like you're losing a lot of the individuality that bows used to have, but it's actually for the better. Because in previous Monster Hunter games, you could immediately rule out most bows just based on the fact that they either didn't have power shot in 4 use case, or didn't have a good rapid options in generations case. So now, each bow can actually be judged fairly, rather than just being ruled out right off the bat. With that said, let's go ahead and get into all the shot types. So starting with rapid, which is our normal arrow shot, it shoots 1 arrow on charge 1, 2 arrows on charge 2, and 3 arrows on charge 3. No brainer there, it pretty much works exactly like how it has before. Quick shot is a new shot that replaces our melee attack with bows. If you press circle, you can now shoot 3 arrows in a fan in front of you. This only works if you don't have a charge, because otherwise you will be shooting power shots. Power shot can be used by pressing circle after you've already shot any other arrow type. It's essentially a spread 5, it shoots 5 arrows in a fan-like motion in front of you, and does pretty solid damage. Just remember, spread shots, including quick shot, have very close critical distance, so you have to keep that in mind when you're shooting rapids and then going right into power shots. Now arc shot's a little different. If you have a charge, or after a power shot, you can press circle and release an arc shot. It works pretty much the same way as it has before, except that it doesn't use your coatings now, which is a huge plus, but it still does KO and staggers pretty well, so it's definitely usable. You can also infinitely combo your spread shot and power shot by spamming your circle button, so long as your stamina will hold out. Since arc shot no longer uses a coating, you can no longer apply statuses with arc shot. However, the bow in the demo only had raw damage, so we don't know whether or not you can use element damage with arc shot. But it's a safe bet to assume that you can. And now on to Dragon Pierce, the new move for bows. And to be honest, this is probably what you're going to use most often. Dragon Pierce is obviously a pierce shot, and it does use your coats, so you can use power coats and blast coats on it. And of course, the more monster you can fit in a line, the more hits you can get off of it. Dragon Piercer gets stronger with charge, so you can hold the charge button and then use Dragon Pierce, or you can just fire it without a charge. It does have critical distance, from point blank to extremely far range, but it does definitely fall off. You can see in various videos where the last numbers go from 20s to 30s to about 4 to 8, and that's because a crit distance ended. That's basically all the shot types and how they work, nothing too new outside of Dragon Pierce. But the real fun comes with the new mechanical changes. Let's start with critical distance, which has become more essential distance now than anything. It seems as though being too close reduces damage by about 50%, but being too far away reduces damage to almost nothing. Most shots tend to do just 1 damage if you're too far away, or in Dragon Piercer's case, it does about 4 to 6. To help with this, charging now increases critical distance. A charge 3 rapid shot has pretty far critical distance, slightly further than normal rapid shots before in previous games. Even your power shot spread will get increased critical distance with your charge levels. Continuing on with charging, you can also charge now by doing a slide while you're aiming your arrow. By pressing X to slide, it will consume some stamina and give you +1 charge. So if you draw your bow and then immediately slide, you'll be at a charge 2, which you can then hold on to get a charge 3, or you can just let it go. Likewise, you can also draw your bow and charge to a charge level 2, and then slide into a charge level 3. Adding on to this, bows now have an escalating charge. This works by firing any arrow that isn't at full charge, and then the next arrow you draw will gain a +1 charge. and maximum charged arrows will continue to fire maximum charged arrows as long as you keep up the barrage. This is very useful when you're cycling between arc shot and power shot spam, as you can continuously pump out level 3 power shots. So to elaborate on this some more, if you just tap your fire button, you will fire a charged 1 rapid, which is just 1 arrow. But if you tap it again, you will instantly go into a charged 2 rapid for 2 arrows, and then you can tap it once more for a charged 3, and then obviously you can just keep tapping it and firing charged 3 shots at that point. And you can mix up these charging mechanics by tapping an arrow and then going into a slide to instantly bring you up to power 3, or by shooting an arrow at charged 1 or 2 and then going right into Dragon Pierce, which also gains the +1 escalating charge. Now obviously this applies to any shot type, so you can slide into a charged 2, fire, and then power shot into a charged 3 shot, or you can hold charge 2, fire, and then Dragon Pierce into a charged 3 Dragon Pierce. You can mix and match the charging and shot types, which makes bow a lot more fun to play than it was before. Alright, let's move on to coatings. Coatings have changed a little bit, but not too much. The main focus here is that power coats are only a 30% damage increase rather than 50%. That seems like a nerf, but it's actually a really good buff. This means that during hunts, if we run out of coatings, we are less hindered by the loss of the coats. You still have 50 to hold and 20 to craft, but you can always head back to camp and grab more. Speaking of running out of coatings, close range coats are infinite now, but instead of making critical distance point blank range to about normal range, it instead reduces your maximum critical distance to incredibly short range. I'm talking damn near point blank range. You have a few feet between you and your target, but that is it. But it does increase your damage by about 20%, so if you're out of power coats, these are always an option to use. This change is very beneficial to casual players, because in previous games you really needed to make every shot count. If you wasted your power coats, you had to finish your hunt at 66% of your previous power. Now you can just head back to camp and grab some new coatings. That's pretty much all the changes to bows, so let's just go ahead and give it a brief review. So remember, this game was a beta, and a very old version of the game at that, so everything is subject to change. To me, I think bow's in a great spot for World. I really enjoyed using it, despite some of its obvious flaws. Like, while the new charging mechanics are great and a lot of fun, it's entirely overshadowed by Dragon Pierce. If you've seen any of the good speedruns, basically everything is just Dragon Pierce spam. Arc Shot and Power Shot were only used on the Rathalos runs, because Rathalos only has a good hit zone on its face, making Dragon Pierce mostly useless. But this isn't a bad thing. It proves that Arc Shot and Power Shot are still very much usable. Things like Anjanath and Diablos, however, have incredibly large hit zones for gunners, especially with Pierce Shot, and so the speedruns for those are pretty much entirely Dragon Pierce. The reason why Dragon Pierce is used isn't because it's overpowered, but it's because bows still have their glaring flaws that they've always had, which is their coatings. When you only have 50 coatings in the beta, or 70 coatings in a real hunt, every shot has to count, and Dragon Pierce only consumes 1 coat. This makes it the most efficient way of playing. Sure, you can always fly back to camp and grab more coatings, but it's been proven with the speedruns that it's just easier to spam Dragon Pierce. For more casual hunting, and with groups, since you can't always predict the monster, you can go ahead and have as much fun with the bow as you can. The new mechanics are great, you can use Dragon Pierce, you can use your arc shots or whatever, and if you run out of coatings, you can just spend 30 seconds to travel back to camp and go grab more. It's not a big deal. But from a more serious standpoint, Dragon Pierce and the coatings will make the bow more one-dimensional, because it's centered around one attack. Case in point, look at the Diablo speedruns. Literally every single shot is Dragon Pierce, not another shot was used. One of the other things is now that bows have no shot pattern, it's going to be even more obvious which bows are the best. If you played 4U or Generations, you know that Kama Sedition and the Teostra bow were hands down the best bows in the game. It was so painfully obvious how superior they were. Now with the removal of shot types, outside of the normal raw element and sockets, the only difference any bow is going to have is what kind of coatings it can use. So it's going to be even more obvious which bows are going to be the best. So overall, it seems like they simplified the bows a lot to make it easier for people to make the transition from Blade Master to gunner weapons, which is actually just fine by me. I'm sure a lot of this sounds more negative, but this is actually all really good. I really enjoy the way bow plays now. It has a much better feel to it, which is entirely subjective, I know, but that's just my opinion. I look forward to seeing what the bow has available at launch and seeing what else it's capable of. Alright, that's all for now. Thanks for listening, you guys. See you next time.